Hello and welcome to Stampscaping 101. Another quick video here. My markers here, my very old markers, are out of ink. As you can see, this I don't know, this olive kind of green right here is out of ink. All right, now I could just toss it out, but instead of that, what I do is I open up the back right here. These are the Marvy 1500 series of brush markers. They are dye-based. And there used to be a, a line of pads called the Marvy Matchables. Okay, now there were, I think in the end, there were about 50, I don't know, there might have been 60 pads. I think there was one of these called Marvy Matchables Heritage or something like that. But they made re-inkers for the pad versions of these inks, okay? That's why they call them Marvy Matchables. These are the Marvy markers, and they had matchable pads, okay, with the same ink in here. All right, so that being said, I don't know how many different colors of markers there are, but it was 100 and some, it's somewhere between 100 and 200 colors, okay? So not all colors are available in pad form, therefore there aren't the same amount of re-inkers available for all of their markers. Okay, now these markers are really super juicy, so chances are you might not ever have to do this. These pens of mine are probably 20, 30 years old, maybe. They're super old. These are these ones right here are really old in themselves. See how they have a different kind of barrel? They stopped doing this kind of gold stamping on the side of the markers. It's probably too expensive. So that being said, I have some really old pens here that I just keep reusing, okay? Now this color of green I don't have in a re-inker form. I think there is one, I just don't happen to have it. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm taking a pine green and a pale green that I happen to have and just kind of mixing the two inks together like this. Okay, now what you do is you just kind of drop them in. I don't know about either side. I think either side, and I think that would be fine. And then you just drop this back in. I'm going to put it in the same direction, whatever direction that I was putting that ink in, so it'll come into contact with that, the tip. Now, you would, normally just store it like this, and that ink through, I don't know, whatever gravity or capillary action or whatever will feed into that. But if you want to just kind of give it a little bit of a head start, you can kind of just reinvigorate that tip there just to get things flowing a little bit faster. And this is just really absorbing into this tip. This pen was really quite dry. And let's see how this goes. Okay, now I'm going to get a lot of that ink that I just put in the tip there naturally, but let's see here. See that? I mean, you could, adjust accordingly maybe if it was like, oh, okay, that green was a little bit, this green was a little bit lighter. I mean, put more of the pale orange in there, green in there, something like that. But I mean, this should be good for another, good span of time. You'll have to re-ink these on occasion if you're using those a lot. Now, for me, I'm, in landscape stamping, I'm doing, if I'm coloring trees like this, green a lot or something, doing larger objects, it's usually some sort of green tree, so I might have a couple different colors of green to use. This one I think was really, this one's olive brown. I don't know, maybe put a green in here and just maybe a drop of the brown or something like that. And that'll give you something akin to the color of the kind of original ink. I don't know if you'll ever get it, exactly the same, but it's better than just tossing these out, right? And, you can get extra life out of them. Let's say you don't have any re-inkers for these, what I just mentioned in my last video, was you can just drop some water down here and it'll just give you a lighter version of this. It won't be as saturated, it'll be a duller, lighter version of this ink. But there's plenty of this dried dye in here that you could reinvigorate it with some water and just get, I don't know, put a little piece of tape on it or put some kind of notation to yourself that, where what this pen kind of looks like at this point in time if it's a diluted, very light, dull green, okay? That being said, there's probably a Marvy color that is the color that you would get by diluting this anyways. It's just not going to be in the barrel, designated on the barrel of your pen. But, if you're using your pens and media quite a lot, you'll remember what you have, especially if you use it a decent amount of times. So, anyways, now this one I do have a green. I don't know. I'm just putting some of this combination of these other ones in here right now. Most of the times I don't want just pure kind of like a Christmas green on here. I'm getting real inky right here, but I don't know, get a lot more mileage out of your pens. Okay. Now this one, the tip is still pretty, pretty good looking. It's not frayed like so many of my other pen tips. These pen tips, that's what's good about this pen tip. It's not like the La Plume or Tombow dye-based markers, watercolor markers. It has more of this big, thick, fat tip. And that's pretty conducive for coloring, large stamps like this. If you take like a fine point brush marker style, they call these brush markers, but this is just a super wide brush marker tip. But the finer tip ones, kind of like more like a Copic, marker tip, but in dye-based ink form, those can get, they're going to be fairly fragile if you're coloring directly on your stamps, because there's a lot of texture on these, so it'd be like, you don't want to squash them into that, but just kind of using a light touch. But these tips right here, they're just so much more durable. Yeah, they'll fray over time, but if that's what you're using them for, that's fine. You should be good, and not really worry about it too much, because these things right here, you're not using them for kind of detailed coloring or something like that. It's a big, wide brush marker tip. So anyways, let's take a look at this one. This isn't the green, but see, I put some, some of those other greens in there. And see, it's kind of going. It's still not, it hasn't saturated down into the tip. I put a few drops on there, but extra life, and that's never a bad thing from our media, right? Getting kind of a second life for them. And like I said, these pens for me this one's probably 30 years old. I probably bought it back in the 90s, or I don't know, something like that. And I don't know, they're still working for me. I love media that works really well and has longevity. I can't stand things that, I don't know, they clog up or something like that and just don't work. That don't give me, a pretty long lifespan. I believe in value and longevity, so something like that. Okay, that being said, if you have other brands of, inks too, I don't know if you can re-ink kind of a double-sided Tombow or La Plume. The dye-based ones I'm talking about, you might be able to remove kind of the wider tip or something like that with a pair of pliers. Put a few drops of ink down there and then reinsert. Okay, one of the things I forgot to say too, if it comes down, if it's the difference between, say, tossing a pen out and just mixing and matching brands, why not give it a try as long as it's the same type of ink? So maybe if you have a Memento, like Cottage Ivy here, that you happen to have a re-inker for, and you have this color of green, why not? It's close enough. I don't think there's going to be some kind of chemical type of incompatibility where it's going to, mess up your inks that are in there or, stop the flow of it. The viscosity of these types of inks are thicker though, so I really don't know how it'll affect it. I don't think it'll dry up the tip, but who knows, I mean, I don't, dye-based inks, I mean, the chemical or the compositions are always a little bit different, but I have to think that they would work kind of in the most, I don't know, fundamental way in terms of water-based media and the tools that are used for it. So I don't know. Like I said, better just give it a try. Maybe you don't fill up an entire reservoir or something like that. You just, put a little on the tip or something like that. See if it gets flowing, and then check it the next day. And if it's, marking just fine, then put, a few drops into the barrel. I wouldn't saturate them up fully unless you're using a certain color all the time. But I just put a few drops, and I'm guessing I went down like a third of that little foam, little straw-like reservoir of ink in there. Okay, so anyways, hope that comes in handy for you. If you have any questions, drop me a note in the comments section. Sometimes these back areas come off, they're kind of tough to get off, so sometimes a little plier. My hands are a little bit sweaty and inky here, but see, I was able to pull that one off. And you just knock it like that, and that comes right off. Okay, that one just came right up, but sometimes I have to kind of knock it like that. Okay, so anyways, that and pumice sponge your fingers after something like that. That gets to be kind of messy. Okay, so anyways, hope that comes in handy for you. Thanks for watching.